Hey, I'm Annabelle, nurse, birth doula, and mama of two now, and I am here to talk about my birth stories. My first birth with my son Bingley, who was born in 2018, and my second birth with Pennington, who was just born a few weeks ago. Both of my births were vaginal, med-free births, and I have beautiful memories of both. And I am here to help you have a birth that you will love to remember. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and ring that bell to stay up to date to my latest content. Let's talk about my first son, Bingley, born in 2018, and a completely different birth experience than my recent birth. Bingley's birth was long, hot labor, and really just kind of tedious. I thought, is this ever gonna end? My active labor was 15 hours when I look back at my journal, and I pushed for 2.5 hours. Super long process because labor actually was more than 24 hours. I'm a nurse. I went to work the day before my due date and started noticing some contractions, but everybody told me you're a first-time mom, you probably won't give birth on your due date. So, okay, I'm having some contractions, have to sit down sometimes when I'm starting an IV because they take my breath away, but no big deal, right? Well, I go home that afternoon. My charge nurse sent me home a little bit early because things weren't super busy. I start walking around the neighborhood, and by dinner time, I just was like, I don't feel like eating. I really just feel like throwing up, and I think this is labor. But I just kind of keep it to myself because I don't want to psych anybody out or for them to think that I'm just a wimp because I'm having contractions and I think it's labor. Late into that night, my mom, who is a labor nurse, she's sitting in my living room with me, coaching me through the contractions. My dad, who's an OBGYN, he was also there and just really being supportive. My husband, he's there with me as well. And I'm having these contractions, just breathing through them. Late into the night, I go to the hospital, even at the recommendation of my mom, who's a labor nurse. She said, yep, these contractions are consistently less than 5 minutes apart. Your pain is intense. You're in active labor, head to the hospital. Well, the resident there didn't think so. She said, yeah, you're in active labor, but your cervix is just still too closed. It was only 1 centimeter. Even though these contractions were less than 5 minutes apart, it's been going on like this for an hour or more. My pain's intense. Well, okay, send me home. My mom was not happy about that decision. She said, if it's labor and delivery, then it's okay for you to labor there. But they knew that I was gonna be in labor for several more hours, and so they said, you'll be more comfortable at home. So I go home, labor through the night. The next morning, around 6 o'clock, my dad drives me and my husband to the hospital. I'm there and laboring, and I'm in bed a lot of the time because I prepared mentally for my first birth, but didn't do a lot of physical preparation of knowing I need to be up on a birth ball, changing positions. So I was in bed, just coping with the pain. Got up a little bit, but really not at all. Then finally, my cervix is dilated to 10 centimeters, or at least open all the way. It's not exactly 10 centimeters. Everybody's cervix is a little bit different, but it was open, it was complete. My baby's head could come through that cervix. And then my nurse said, let's push, bear down. You can do this, taking in deep breaths as the contraction's building, and start pushing. For 2.5 hours, I'm pushing like this. I was in bed on my back. I don't ever recommend that for first-time moms, second-time moms, etc. You cannot push as effectively, it doesn't feel right, or at least it didn't for me, and you are more likely to tear your perineum more severely if you're laying on your back. So I definitely recommend changing that position, but I was pushing effectively, my nurse and doctor said, even though it took so long. First-time moms, it takes a while. And I was on the upper end of taking a while. Really, more than 3 hours is too long. So you can do things by changing positions and help yourself push more effectively in that first birth. But be encouraged that I had a long labor and I had a long pushing phase, but it still is in the normal limits of how long labor should last for a first birth. But it was a vaginal med-free birth. My baby was healthy, and I have a beautiful memory of that. And I know that you can do it. So now moving on to Pennington, my second born, and I just gave birth to him a couple weeks ago. Completely different experience. It was fast and it was hot, and he's here and he's healthy. So My due date was still 13 days away. Everybody's thinking, nope, no baby's coming anytime soon, but I had a feeling. You know that feeling that you get right before you start your period? If you don't keep track of your period on your calendar, you know when your period's coming. Most women have this feeling of, I think I should take a tampon or a pad with me if I'm going out because I think I'm gonna start bleeding soon. Giving birth is very similar. No, you can't know exactly when your baby's coming, but mama, you are gonna have this sensation. If you really are in tune with your body and you notice when things are just kind of feeling a little off, that baby might be coming soon. And it's not just this like anticipation of, I hope baby's coming soon, so I'm gonna wish it upon myself, but you will probably have some sort of feeling of, I think it's gonna start soon. I am having some contractions, go out for a girls' day and evening with my mom and sisters. We go shopping and I'm having contractions and I say to my mom, this baby is coming tomorrow at 1:50. Yeah, I was kind of joking, but at the same time, I wasn't. I was like, this is for real. We go out to dinner at a place in town called Pot Roast and Pinot. I get meatloaf, mashed potatoes, carrots, etc., and I clear my plate. My body needed that fuel because I was not going to eat for another 24 hours. I go home, go to bed, I'm having contractions, laying in bed going, these are for real. These aren't just Braxton Hicks. This is the real deal. My body is getting ready for birth. I was so excited, but trying to stay cool because in case it didn't happen. So around 3 o'clock in the morning, I get up, start using my birth ball, really just get excited because I'm like, yes, this baby's coming. I feel it and I'm ready. Even though I'm 13 days early, this baby needs to come. I was having a lot of pressure and pain in my pubic area with this pregnancy, so I was ready. And so I'm laboring through the night. My husband gets up around 4:30. I get up around 5:30, use my birth ball. I did some laundry. And at 7:45, I called my mom and said, I need you to come and get my son Bingley, you know, our firstborn, who I really just can't be taking care of right now. Can you come and get him? My dad actually comes to get Bingley. And he sits down on the couch instead of just taking him and going because I'm in labor. And he wants to have a conversation. My dad's a very chatty guy. He's got that soft side. He's an OBGYN. He really likes to connect with women. And he's looking at me as I'm sitting there just trying to keep it together, having contractions, at this point less than 5 minutes apart. And he says, Annabelle, you know, I think you're in labor, but you're 13 days away. And I just want you to know that some women can stay in prodromal labor where it's active labor, but it stops. And so your cervix isn't really changing that much. And you know, some women can stay in that for 2 weeks. As in, Annabelle, you're not really in labor. Don't get too excited. I said, Dad, okay, I really need you to go because I'm in a lot of pain right now. So he leaves and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate doctors. Literally just psyched me out, which your mind is so powerful in birth. It is going to help those hormones help you progress towards birth. And so he psyched me out and I'm back on my birth ball and I realized I haven't had a contraction in more than 5 minutes. I'm not in active labor and I thought that I was, and my dad just psyched me out and now it's just gonna get worse and I'm gonna have more fear. And so I stopped. I said, Ben, my husband, come in here, help me. I need to get in a new mindset. And I told him that I was just freaking out and my dad really psyched me out and I'm not in a good mindset. And so he just helped me calm down. This is why your birth support is so important, mama. He gets me on the birth ball. I start bouncing. He starts massaging my back and I just start going to my happy place. That place that I know will get me in the right mood and the right mindset for birth. So I go to that happy place. And I tell myself my birth statement again, my birth statement that I can give birth naturally, that I'm strong, that I'm capable. And I just imagine that happy place to get me back in my labor groove. And then I knew, okay, yep, my contractions are back. Yep, this is right. This is good. This is labor. Around 10 o'clock, my husband really started paying attention to my contractions with me. And for the next hour, we timed every contraction and it was less than 5 minutes apart. My contractions were usually 2 to 3 minutes apart, very intense, very hot. But I was still kind of questioning myself because my labor had only been going on for a few hours and it was very different from my first birth. And so I called my mom over. After it had been an hour, she came over and she said, yep, your breathing's changed. Annabelle, your contractions are less than 5 minutes apart. They're like 2 to 3 minutes apart. I can clearly see you are in pain because I couldn't talk through my contractions, even though I'm very strong and calm usually. Not to like give myself kudos or something, but through that pain, I was very calm. And she said, it's time to go to the hospital. And all of a sudden Ben was like, what? Okay, grab the bags. Good thing we had it packed, hopped in the car, headed to the hospital, was at the hospital by 11:45. My nurse took me to my room, got me all situated, made sure that I had no cords on me so I could get out of bed. I am literally standing next to the bed. I am over the table at that point. My husband's like, what's going on? Because I was just so much more intense in this labor. Things were happening so fast. I was really getting primal. I was groaning. I was trying to cope with this pain that was very intense compared to my first. My first was very drawn out, which was exhausting, but this was fast, hot, and intense. So at this point, I am all situated. My nurse leaves the room. My husband's behind me as I'm standing next to the bed, and my bag of waters just ruptures everywhere. And he was so glad that he jumped out of the way because he had his good shoes on. Husbands, I don't recommend wearing nice shoes that you like. His were his Vans that he would not have wanted ruined by amniotic fluid. Jumped out of the way. I'm like, he's coming, he's coming. The nurse gets called to the room. Where's my doctor? She's not there yet, but she's coming, I hope. So at this point, the doctor that's on call comes into the room. He says, you know, Annabelle, I'm okay with you standing like that, but we would really like you to get in bed just so that baby's protected. I'm like, I can't get in bed. Everybody helps me get in bed, but I want to be on my hands and knees. So I'm on my hands and knees in bed. I start pushing, and my son Pennington's born. And then my doctor showed up to deliver my placenta and make sure everything was okay. But because of everything that's going on, she couldn't get in the front door, and it was just kind of crazy. But she did show up after the baby was born. But totally okay, she's been a great physician. I still had great care. So with Pennington, let's take a look at my journal through all that happened. Active labor, 3 hours, 35 minutes. Push time, 6 minutes, 40 seconds. Really, really fast, really, really intense. So again, 15 hours, 3 hours, 35 minutes, 2.5 hours of pushing, 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Completely different. Both of these were vaginal births. Both of them were med-free births, but just very different. I was laying on my back with my first birth. I was hands and knees on my second birth. Not really using the birth ball with my first birth, really using the birth ball with my second birth. So first time mamas, I want to give you these tips. First off, your labor and birth is probably going to take a little while. It might not be as long as mine, it might be longer, but it is going to take some time. Unless there is a reason that your doctor's like, baby has to come now and you have a C-section or your labor's induced, etc. Be encouraged. If it takes a while, you can do this. My second tip, use all of the tools that work for you. Make sure that you are using a birth ball. If it is comfortable for you, then I definitely recommend it. Find one that is a good size for your height. Make sure that it's already blown up around the house, ready to use in your pregnancy so that you can really get the hang of it and you can get your pelvis loose and ready to go. And in labor, use that birth ball. I know that is what helped my cervix dilate so fast. My baby's head was low, and just pressing on that cervix over and over and over to help it open up so that he could be born. My third tip, make sure that you have your birth support ready with you, that you two have gotten ready together, that you have created a birth plan. My birth plan is very simple. Yours might be a little bit more complicated, but I encourage you to make sure you have read some blogs or found someone that knows how to make a good birth plan and make sure that you have gone over your birth plan so that it's very concise and something that really can be accomplished, that there's nothing really contradicting itself in your birth plan. I have a separate video for that. I coach women in helping them create a good birth plan. So make sure that you have a good birth plan. Make sure that your birth support person, your husband or a birth doula, your mom, sister, whoever it is, really knows that birth plan so that they can be your advocate at the hospital, so that when you're groaning through that contraction and not talking, they can be talking for you. So really get ready with that birth plan. Get ready with different techniques that you want to have in labor. Massage. Where do you like to be massaged? Back, legs, buttocks. If they want to practice sacral pressure or the double hip squeeze to really help you get comfortable in labor. So really getting ready and having that birth support. And mama, please just have birth support. There's so many people that are like, no, I don't need it, I'm fine. But really, it's super important. I just want to overall encourage you that a natural hospital birth is completely possible. You can look back at your birth and say, I love to remember that. I love to go over it in my head. I love to read my journal about how it happened. I love to tell people about it. But it takes preparation. It takes getting over that mind game of being fearful. What are the contractions gonna feel like? What if I don't have a high enough pain tolerance? You can do it. You just have to get prepared, and you have to have a coach, somebody telling you that you can do it, whether it's a family member, a labor and delivery nurse, friend, whoever it is. Be encouraged by that person. I hope this was fun for you to listen to and be encouraged. If you have any questions for me, put them in the comment section below. I'd love to answer them for you. I'd love to do another video that might kind of go in depth about something that you're curious about. So definitely let me know. I will see you in the next video.